there's a clear-cut signal, often from the very big corporations, that this is all we care about. There's a signal coming to you that it's just a transaction between you and us. Unless you can prove to me that you're worth something or worth whatever I'm paying to you, you're just another, letter on the overall business.
I think it depends on what you're measuring, right? Are you measuring effectiveness, the productivity, or are you looking at efficiency? I mean, these are the terms we throw at the people and say to confuse them. If you can't convince, you confuse. So that's what it is now, right? So again, to your point on the trust factor, there are a lot of IT folks I see, and now a lot of IT companies using the technology, they're doing a geo-tagging. Right?
The sales week.
Because they don't know where they are. There's someone sitting in Manali and doing an IT job. They log in and say that I'm giving an outcome. Why are you bothered when I'm in Manali or Shimla or wherever it is, right? But the organizations doesn't want to promote that. That's their culture. They're saying
that's
our
what we
culture is
encourage.
correct.
But by the way, that's what we encourage.
Yeah,
I
but
don't
not every
care
company does that.
where you are.
But Radha, just to interrupt you, so every organization, you're in big organizations anyways, can possibly do whatever it's doing with maybe 10% fewer people. Is there a thought process like that? Okay,
Yeah.
we
So to
have 1 lakh.
productivity, that's why I smile. That's a very important metric. So it's not at the cost of productivity. So every manager will have productivity targets. What I do today, I need to do it with 90%, or I'm giving you an example. I need to do it, get better at it, and either, reduce the size of my team or increase it through additional revenue. So there are ways, but productivity is important, but not at the cost of culture. Because a manager who thinks that they can only drive productivity and only, micromanage and beat up their employees, whether they are in person or virtual, will sooner than later fail. That team will be, it'll break down. So you have to keep that culture of trust, of bonding, and growth. I think that's they all have to go together.
I think there's a flaw in this panel that all of us have worked for great companies. So our view on culture somewhere is, based, is very strong. And we are great believers because we've experienced that and we've all had long careers in those great companies.
I've worked for some very poor bosses as well, and I can tell you that it can get really, and even large toxic in large corporations or large
Can be miserable, actually.
family-run concerns.
So then the next level is, culture in family-run business. Today you have a lot of companies which were originally, in the typical language, you would call them the Lala companies, where they've now become public corporations with the public issues and all that. And how do they run their companies and what is the culture? So I have the experience of sitting on some of those boards, and most employees are there because they need the job, and because the decisions are all taken by the owner.
I have a couple of examples. Airtel is a family-owned concern, not a family-run concern.
That's a very different.
And that's a beautiful midpoint to to getting great culture, building a large organization. And you can see the way it's growing. No matter what happened to it, all the crises that they went through, competition. When I was in Airtel, we had 13 competitors. Today there are 2, and one very large one, and one. So they've survived every single crisis, and that's because of that strong culture that was there, built in the organization. And I've worked for Future Group, very strong, one-man company, family-owned, family-run. There are CEOs, there are middle management, senior management. None of them matter, and it's true even for places like some other large companies today. The company collapses over a period of time because there is something missing in that place. Despite all of those great managers being there, the company collapses. So they are just 2 examples.
I can just summarize that saying that if you want to grow, you can grow with a strong person at the top. But if you really want to expand, then you need culture.
If you have to sustain that growth. But tell me one question to all of us. We've, again, as I said, that we come from a different generation. do we, I mean, what is our belief? I mean, we can take a vote on it of what is happening today. Is the world going to remain like this, or this will need to change because it is not sustainable?
I think it's becoming more hierarchical and patriarchal. It was a democracy 20 years back, 15 years back, 30 years back. It was free. You could speak your mind. You could, even in companies. I'm not talking about politics, I'm talking about companies. Today, I find it narrowing, and much more toxic than it was 20 years ago. Right? Leaders are very, very strong leaders. And that's, I think, to the detriment of the general corporate culture that is there. There are great companies still alive, but great companies also under pressure for hiring, firing, stock market next quarter, this quarter, and all of that stuff. And that's really resulted in a insecure environment. And insecure environments don't breed good culture.
So, Dhiraj, has this become a business model? So, we've been talking about this single person hero of the company. Has this become a business model? As in, you're using that. See, in the eyes of social media, it's easier to sell one person than 10 different people, and selling nuance is hard. So, I sell one person, I sell the company's product. So, you know very well, there are hardly 4 or 5 companies, let's say LinkedIn. There are hardly 4 or 5 companies that garner maybe 90% of the engagement that happens across startups. So we see this as a very effective tool, but is it creating business? Is it because it's generating revenues, valuations, all those financial metrics are also improving? Is it that?
Well, I think that's the flavor of right now. Whether we see this in politics or in business, you will see that there is a very strong face, and this model is working right now. So it's a flavor. I don't know what's going to happen in the future, but we spoke about VC pressures. It is always good that they said, okay, this is the face, this is the person, we are backing him or her, and so it's very convenient for every stakeholder to have one person. And then it becomes that person's onus to drive everything. So it's working right now. I would say if you see, strong startups, they're all one person led company. They're the clear face. But at the same time, I have seen many companies, in spite of having that one face, they have shared that responsibility, as the example was between a family run and a family owned company. There are very, even startups who have one face, but they have equally professional team and who are doing a phenomenal job. There are clear guidance given to some people that, okay, don't be very active on social media. From a PR point of view, there'll be only one person who's the face. But in terms of management and execution, there is a good team which is running the show.
So that's fine. There's a leader, there are people managing, there's a face. But basically the challenge that these leaders or their PR teams are currently facing is that you have to be in the limelight regardless of whether you have the content to speak or you have something to deliver or not. Just engage in any controversy, do something to be there.
That is absolutely, that's a big business right now. That is a big business, marketing consultants and many more people.
I was just going to say that. So I do this piece, which is the marketing predictions for, for the next coming year. And if you go to my LinkedIn and you see for 2025, I had one of those predictions. It's on number 11. And it says that any publicity is good publicity. In fact, the flavor of the year is going to be negative publicity. So yeah, that is one of the things that people are following. But just to go back to your previous question, it's not necessarily a business model for having one person, because I do consult to a lot of clients. Essentially, it is important when you're a smaller company to promote one person. But as you grow, you need to have many heads. And we call it head PR. So you need to have the distribution of your PR across various people. That's how you build strength. And because it's collective, it's 1 + 1 is equal to 11. So it is a strategy because they are able to communicate better as opposed to everyone talking about it. You know how it is, like one person.
Companies believe this right now, at least the ones that are very ambitious. Are they going to believe? I understand that the model, this is how it should be. But will they follow? Will the new age companies follow
Look at it this way, right? You'd rather be known for being somebody than do everything and be a ship which goes by night. So you need to let people know about you or your company or what it does and what your ambition is and what your vision is. You need to tell people about it. So it's a good thing actually. It used to happen organically earlier. Now it's being used because you have the medium like a LinkedIn, which was probably never used that much earlier.
But again, memories are short, attention spans are short. There's news every minute. So you need to do it repeatedly, I guess, over periods of time. Unlike in the past where, when we work in multinational, it used to be one annual campaign that came out for a brand. Now you need to do one every quarter, every month. You need to find new things to do, trending, catch the trending wave, whatever it is.
And in the end, another problem is that, see, in the equilibrium or the system that we are creating like this, we have to be everywhere and every time. In the end, it's going to come out from someone's pocket. Either the customer or the investor, and 100 companies. That's so like big companies, Pepsi, Coca-Cola, everyone is fighting with each other on the advertising wars. Then they decide, why are we doing this? No, let's cut down. Both of us cut down, come together, and it's better for us, right? So in this new age, 100, 200 companies, all of them are battling it out every day to be in the attention. Where's this going to lead it maybe in 5-10 years?
And with the fast pace, it's not only marketing, but also the changes in technology. It is so difficult to keep pace. Every 2 months, there's something new. Clients want it. And you want to deliver it to them because otherwise you lose to competition. So you're absolutely right, Vaibhav. It's a cutthroat world. Competition is very tough. And my days in Coca-Cola, which was in the late 1990s to early 2000s, we used to break bottles of each other, right? And then now I don't know what's the state, but I think survival has to be with innovation and innovating at pace. If you want to be relevant and if you want to survive.
I think it all depends on the leader, right, at the top. If the company, I have seen difference, we have seen, right? If the leader at the top is coming from a sales organization, the organization culture is different. If it's a CHRO becoming a CEO is different. If it is technology is different. If it's a finance guy, is a CFO becoming a CEO is different. So I think there are leaders who are like value driven. There are leaders who are like target driven. There are leaders who are like my way or highway. Right? So it depends on the individual how the culture of the organization can just make a difference.
Yeah, so I get it. There's everything. There's all kinds of variety in the market. But now, last question is it connected to long-term performance or long-term survival? Or, is the connection weak at best, or there's a strong conviction that we totally believe that strong culture will drive a long-term,
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Unanimously.
In fact, what is undermining culture is this focus on long-term performance or the lack of focus on long-term performance. So today, this whole thing about investors and VCs or private equity, they want results now, here and now, and that obviously leaves culture requires time. It will, again, going back to agriculture, a crop which has to take 3 months will take 3 months. You can't grow it in 2 weeks, and similarly. But if you're wanting results in 2 weeks, then you'll have to probably create that crop in a factory or something like that.
I could say that.
Yeah.
And going by the agriculture example only, that you need to create a culture, not a cult.